Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into the Wilderness Attitude podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Waddell. This podcast you're about to listen to is awesome. Bobby and Kristin Labonte. That ought to ring a bell to some of you. Maybe not to everybody, but this podcast has been so awesome sitting down with Kristin and Bobby that we've had to split this into two parts. So if you enjoy part one, you'll enjoy part two even more. So kick back and enjoy the show. This is Brandon with Wilderness Attitude Podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. Today on the show, we get the pleasure of getting to know Bobby and Kristin Labonte. Both positive, dedicated, persistent champions in their own right. Met each other a few years back, and they're carrying on traditions with things that they do in the outdoors and places they've been, and we just really want to touch base with them and get to know them outside of their professional careers and see what they're doing, giving back to their community as well. You know, there's neither one of them really need a huge introduction. If you know anything about NASCAR or USA Cycling, then you are familiar with both of these people. Bobby Labonte, obviously, a champion in NASCAR Series, Xfinity Series, IROC Series. He's currently a nominee in the NASCAR Hall of Fame, which we'll find in the beginning of next year. I'm pretty sure he'll make it. And Kristin won the 2012 Masters Time Trial World Cup. I don't know much about cycling, and so that'll come off very obvious through this podcast. But I am a little familiar with NASCAR. I started watching NASCAR in 2002, and I had to pick a driver in 2002, so I went with a rookie. So, can you guess the rookie I chose?
Dang. No. I can't remember. I don't. Who was the rookie guy? Who was the rookie back then? I don't remember who it was.
Jimmy Johnson. That was his first full season. Yep.
I thought he was older than that.
No, and I think did Nemechek start that year too? I think. I'm not.
No. Nemechek was about the time I started. Maybe a little bit after that. He was between me and I guess Jimmy Johnson. Now that I know that, 2002.
Yeah, I have a friend that's an avid NASCAR guy. Like, he doesn't watch any football. It's straight up NASCAR all day. And so I went over to his house and he says, okay, if you're going to start watching NASCAR, you got to pick a driver. Who are you going to follow? And I said, well, I don't want to be a bandwagon guy. I don't want to follow someone who's been running already. So who's the rookies this year? And he named Jimmy Johnson and someone else. And I was like, well, Jimmy Johnson, that kind of has a ring to it. I think I'll go with that. And it worked out pretty well for me, being a fan, I guess, right?
I hope you put money down on that.
I wish I would have, but I did not. Look, I can't win $1 on a football game, so I'm not much of a gambler. Well, it's surely a pleasure to meet you both. Thank you very much for being on the podcast. I'm sure our viewers are really going to enjoy getting to know you both outside of your professional careers a little bit and getting to dive into some of how you've translated things that you've learned in your life. I mean, you've grown up hunting, you've done some other things, but I'm really curious to see how, and we'll get to it in a little bit, how you guys moved your passion of everything you do. I mean, everything you guys do, it seems like the two of you go full tilt. Like, you don't do anything half-ass, right? So,
nope. We could probably have a reality show with a camera following us around with the stuff that we do.
That sounds like a good time. We might have to talk about that. Maybe we should get Mike in on that gig, huh? Yeah. So, first of all, how did the two of you meet?
You want to tell a story?
I'll start it because I know you'll chime in.
Okay.
So it was the first time we ever met was I was in Homestead, Florida for the final race of the year, and my trainer, Chad Andrews, was there with me. He'd been to a few races, and that was just one that he picked to come down to. And I don't know the year. Help me out on the year. Remember that?
No, I don't know the year either.
But so anyway, so we traveled down there for the race and got ready, running the race. Sunday morning, he made a comment. He asked me. He said, "Hey, I've got a few friends that might want to come in, and if they can get in, do you mind meeting them?"
Right.
Sure. And that's a normal thing for me to hear. That hey, before the race, I got somebody I want you to meet. Hey, we got some special guests. We got this. We got that. So we ended up on Sunday morning. Chad introduced me to 2 or 3 people, and we had sponsors there. We had guests we had all kinds of people. Well, so obviously I meet Kristin at the time because she was, Chad was her coach as well. Now, I didn't know that from Chad. She didn't know it from Chad, but Chad just knew her and I just knew Chad.
Right.
So he introduced us at that point in time with a friend of yours and your mom and dad.
Right.
And then we can do the fast forward, like
years later.
4 years later. He's like, so it's 4 years later, and I had gone through a tough time and was on the outs of being married, or basically wasn't married at that point in time. And I called Chad on the phone. I texted him one night. I was like, "Hey man, I see this girl Kristin on Facebook. What does she do?" I mean, I have no idea, and I didn't even know that I had met her at the time back in the day.
You didn't remember that, huh?
I remember meeting people, but and I remember faces, and I can never remember a name.
Man, you meet a ton of people. I mean, I don't know how you could keep track of it all.
I just, hey man, what's up? Hey, good to see you again. Yeah. So, and now if I say I've seen you again, I'm good to see you again, I'm 50-50.
Yeah,
So
thumbs up.
I'm good side 50-50, I'm good. So I was actually overseas, and I texted him. He said, "Man, you're screwed up." I said, "Yeah, I'm always screwed up, but what's the point?" He said, "Well, I'll see her tomorrow." I said, "Well, don't say nothing. I just was curious." Mm-hmm. So I don't know all the dates and everything,
right.
But I'll let you.
He did say something.
Yeah, Chad said something to Kristin in California.
Yeah, the next day.
So
but he didn't tell me he wasn't supposed to say anything.
Yeah, he's. So
Yep.
Anyway, so fast forward again, 2 weeks later, I get an email back over in Europe, and I get an email from Kristin, and I'm like, Chad couldn't keep his mouth shut, and I wasn't looking to start a relationship. I was just wondering.
Right.
And of course, I guess Chad took it differently because I was probably asking a lot of questions. And so anyway, so I get an email in May. It was Memorial Day weekend,
mm-hmm.
and I deleted the email. And I called Chad. I was like, "Dude, I thought I told you not to say nothing." He said, "You're really screwed up." I said, "Yeah, I told you I was." So this was in May, and then finally in August.
In August.
I texted you.
He texted me. Yep.
So that was it was like, I don't know how you explain all that, but anyway, that's what happened. So just go with non-explanation. Just listen to what we said, and that's it.
Now, I heard a rumor that you guys met at the High Point Cycling event.
Yeah.
That is a true rumor, and
Okay.
So fake news is true.
No, it's not.
That was fake.
That's not fake.
So-
That's real news.
So what happened was when we texted, and it was the High Point Cycling Classic was coming to High Point.
Yeah, like a month after you text me or something like that.
3 weeks after, something like that. So she flies to High Point, the metropolis of High Point, North Carolina. I'm there. She's there with the cycling team. I'm there because I sponsor a kids zone, and so we arranged to meet. And I didn't actually listen to her voice until Friday afternoon. And I said, "Okay, hey, I'll be there at 5. Go be there." Yeah, okay, all right. Well, so see you then. Here she come walking across the street, and it was like, blink. Okay, so we just hung out the rest of that afternoon, evening, and rest is history.
Yep.
So I envisioned this Bobby Labonte in spandex riding a bicycle, and you guys were riding next to each other and looked at each other, and it was like true love on wheels at that point. But obviously that wasn't how it went down.
Well, that's a great way to put it.
That's kind of funny though when we get on the bike.
We can make anything you want it to. Anything you want to be, we can make that. If it's good for TV, we'll make it happen. How's that?
Well, no, I mean, that's what I envisioned, but I wasn't quite sure if that's what I wanted to see. You know?
I will say that so we spoke on the phone. That the very first time was the day we also met. We had never spoken on the phone, and when I did walk over to meet you, I went to the kids zone at the bicycle event, and it was pretty cool seeing him, you know, for the first time as not the famous guy, but as this real person that I could have a connection with, you know, a deeper connection with. And it was like, yep, this is real. It's real.
Yeah, right. It wasn't on his big stage, wasn't in with all his peeps and everybody, right? You know, and so love at first sight.
Yeah.
I think, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4.5 years later, probably.
Well, you know, it's strange how the world has a way of doing that, right? I mean, even in the hunting world, right? I mean, you can see an animal and come back, and 2 years later, you thought you'd never see him again, and there he is standing there again. You know, it's strange how the universe works, but it's pretty neat seeing how you guys both came from a background in. I mean, you guys are dedicated. You're both passionate. It just seems like you guys would attract one another. And at this point, with the background that you guys have had in your lives and now together, what are you guys doing that's together that's pushing forward in the same mindset as you guys have been most of your life?
Everything.
Everything.
Good answer. Okay.
Everything. Yep.
I mean, it's as simple as like, even right now, we're sitting in our office, and our office isn't 2 desks. It's one big table that we share.
Right.
And so we really do everything, like you said, full gas, but also together. So he's invested in things that are important to me, and if I have, you know, something in my career that is just specific to me, he's there with me through all of it, and vice versa. You know, Bobby's doing some quite a bit of television right now, and you know, 9 times out of 10, I'm sitting in the green room. It's just, you know, to be there for each other all the time, and that's kind of the way it works for us.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It makes it's a lot easier that way.
And then, of course, we have a lot of projects together too.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, it's nice when you're partners in crime, right? And you both have the same visions and the same desires. And so, you've had the Bobby Labonte Foundation for a while, right? But together, you guys are working on the Breaking Limits, which is, why don't you tell us about that?
Well, my marketing company, I've had it for 8 years, almost 9, I think, right around 9. Mm-hmm. And I started that when I had General Mills as a sponsor, and we did PR, and we did some hospitality programs with them at the races because they were sponsoring the petty car I was driving at that time. So, you know, hired 2 people, 2 went to 4, 4 went to 8, and you know, we started, and I really wasn't part of it a lot. I let other people run it. Right. Just for the fact that I was always busy 36, 38 weekends a year, and I really couldn't dedicate, you know, the time to stand in there and make decisions or listen to too much. I had to let some other people do that.
Right. So
appointed some good people to do that, and ran the program, and you know, I also didn't want to have a company, you know, we represent that, you know, thinks that we're going to take something away from somebody else or another team don't want to take anything away. So I kind of stood on the down low of it. Uh-huh. And so, but for the past 2 or 3 years, since we got together, and, you know, I know that with Kristin's background, which if we have time, she could tell you about that. If I don't take up too much time, when I know it should be all about you and not me. And so what we've taken is both of our knowledge that we have in marketing, sponsorships, racing, winning, knowing how to talk to people as far as sponsors go. And, I've been fortunate enough to do that. Kristin's been fortunate enough to do that. So it's not like we've never had to give a presentation or had to go speak in front of somebody or had to wear logos, which is real important in our sports, to wear a logo that a sponsor, whether it's a Fortune 5 company, a Fortune 100 company, a Fortune 500 company, that sponsors you, that, when you have them for 10 or 12 years and you have those relationships, that means you do a pretty good job. So you didn't screw up. And that's the whole key, is not screwing up. And I think you've done a good job of that. So when you do that, you are into marketing, and you know how all of it works. So we put it all together in the things that we do and trying to grow the business more than we have.
So together in the Breaking Limits, and you guys are both heavily involved in that, right? Kristin, you do a lot in that. And
yes.
So tell us about your background and how that plays into that organization.
Yeah. So women's professional cycling is not a lucrative sport. No female races their bike for the money. There are, a handful of women that are doing pretty well, and the rest of the pro peloton is doing okay, but they're racing because they love it, and they're racing because they have big goals and big dreams and things like Olympics and world championships, and that's really what drives them. There's not a financial component that drives women to be strong cyclists. So many of them have kind of a side career, and a lot of them are coaches, nutritionists, yoga instructors, things like that are, obviously have easy transfer application to the sport itself. Well, for me, my background is in the creative world. So design, marketing, sponsorship, client services, handling clients, and things like that. And so I always kept that piece of my career going while I was racing. And I raced 12 years and kind of balanced a dual career lifestyle for the entire time. And so coming out of my pro racing career, I kind of slotted right back into, I guess, what would be more of a business career, which is in client services, managing clients and finding sponsors and partners and making sure that they get what they need out of the sponsorship that they've agreed to do. And so for me, Breaking Limits was, it's right in my wheelhouse. It's exactly what I know how to do. It's, my involvement there has been, to this point, pretty high level, where I'm just kind of giving strategic direction and helping solve problems and making sure that Bobby and I both understand what's happening with the clients, and that we do the best that we can with the ones that we have, that we deliver the best service we can to them, and that we continue to find ways to grow as a company. So it was it's one of those things, like walking across walking down that sidewalk, seeing him on that first day, and the instant connection that we felt obviously was, a love connection, but it's so ironic that there's so much overlap in our lifestyles and our interests and our careers. And I even we joke all the time, actually, that when we put our helmets on, we're different people,
right? But
our helmets are different. And if you go to a bicycle race, the footprint and the setup of the kind of the racing area is very similar to what you even find in a NASCAR race.
Right.
The setup is similar. It's just that they have 4 wheels and go 200 miles an hour, and we have 2 wheels, and we may break 30, 32 miles an hour. So there's just been so much overlap in us and our lives, and for me, I'm so glad that I kept kind of one foot in the marketing and sponsorship business while I was racing, because retiring from racing was a whole lot easier than if I'd had to start over with a professional career at something else.
So do you feel that transition out of racing through this company and through the other stuff that you guys have done post retirement, do you think it made retirement easier for you guys? Because don't you still get the itch to go do 215 miles an hour, Bobby? Don't you still? Do you get in a hot rod at home and go cray-cray around the block, or no?
I never mentioned the word retirement, so I don't know where you read that.
Oops.
So I'm just between this and that.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm on Wednesday. I'm on Hump Day Wednesday.
You're just you're stuck
So
on Wednesday Groundhog Day.
Yeah. So when you, I'll have to say that racing and cycling might be the same thing. I think any type of sport that you're involved in some ways is like this, but it's the most legal drug you can take, and it is so hard to get out of your system. You're just addicted to it, and you enjoy it, and I wouldn't enjoy 38 weekends a year again.
Right.
But I do enjoy going and driving a car fast and competing in a race that's maybe at a different level today than it used to be for me. I did that in Europe this year, and we just came back from a test there as well. So yeah, I get to put on a helmet that's not a bicycle helmet every now and then. That actually something that I'm probably more familiar with and get to do. So I have no idea. Nobody knows if I'll run another race in my life, but at the same time, it's I don't want to do that like I used to, but I wouldn't mind doing something else that's similar to it, but you don't have to be that pressure packed like it used to be.
That level of commitment in the NASCAR series and then running, 2 or 3 series at the same time, all that just seems chaotic. And
it's great. It was great for that long, and then now it's past that. So right. I'm not. I'm probably not going to be that rookie that you picked back in 2002, that Jimmy Johansson guy. But
right.
yeah. So anyway, but I enjoy going fast, and I've done some testing, and I have my finger in it. I've been doing the Fox Sports 1 broadcast or analyst role for Race Hub, for a year now, and going to do a lot more next year. Yeah. So excited that I still have my finger in it, just maybe not in the same type of thing like I used to.
So you get to go run a race car a little bit, and you get to go help run some testing and some things like that. But is there anywhere outside of racing that you get a thrill that kind of fulfills some of that?
Well, I think that every day we do something. We comment about, we have a 5-gallon bucket and we fill it with 10 pounds of stuff, and we always try to accomplish more than we sometimes can do in a day. But that's a thrill to me. We're trying to figure out and do things, and we go after opportunities, and we look at everything as opportunity. So that's a thrill for me. Riding. I'd have to say, right now, I'm not as young as I once was. What was that song by Toby Keith?
Yeah.
Not that wasn't it, but it was one of those songs. And I'm not as good as I once was.
Right.
But
better than I've ever been. Right.
Yeah.
Something
I look a lot better than I used to, though. I've seen those pictures. So. But what I do like, and what we've done is, and it gets harder every year, but staying fit in shape, and been able to go on a bicycle ride with Kristin and some other people, and at the end of the ride, I've had countless times that I've come back from a bike ride, and I told Kristin, that's it, I'll quit, I'm done, it's over, I quit, I retire, I'm done. I've never retired from it. I'm so tired, I can't do it anymore. And so fast forward, weeks later, I'm doing the same ride or something like that. I get done, I'm like, man, that was awesome. So that to me is a good accomplishment. That's a thrill. I enjoy, and when you go fast on a bicycle, and you fixing to fall or you're making a corner, and it's like, whoa, that's pretty quick, and yeah. I'm just an amateur guy out riding around, with a lot of other people, but it's fun. That's kind of one of my things, and that I like to do, and we do it together. And I used to be in a group ride, and it was just me. And when we met,
myself, and I.
Yeah. When we met, we started riding together. I doubled my group ride to 2.
There you go. Me, myself, and I, and her.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. So, So anyway, that's kind of a thrill right now, I think.
I have a lot of respect for the cycling gig, and so I grew up in Durango, Colorado. So the Iron Horse Bicycle Classic is there, where they race the train to Silverton over 2 mountain passes over 10,000 feet, and you know, you used to be able to go cruise the road with them. Now they shut it down. You can't actually go drive through while they're racing, which is probably a good idea. But when I was younger, we used to go check that out. And when these guys are going downhill at 60 miles an hour down some of these mountain passes, and there's only this much tread touching the ground total between both tires, that seems crazy. I mean, way crazy. I would much rather be in a cage doing 200 than doing 60 on a bicycle and spandex on that much tread. It just, I don't know how you ever did it, Kristin, some of that stuff, but it's nuts.
Well, for me, I can answer this. For me, when people say, "How's it feel to go 200?" I said, "It ain't really a problem to go 200. It's when something happens when you're going 200. That's the problem." I'm sure on the bike when you go 60, it's like, it's not a big deal, but when something happens, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you took a hard fall at one point, right, in your career, Kristin?
Yeah. When I started racing bikes, the first team that I was on was sponsored by a local bike shop. And they told me, just get ready. You're going to crash twice a year. That's normal. And I was like, sure, whatever. I'm in. This is fun. I love it. It's like, it's a thinking sport and it's a physical sport. And all of it combined to me was just completely exhilarating. So I didn't care. Right. And so sure enough, twice a year, you crash, you lose skin. It's usually road rash and occasionally broken something. Right. And, I did have a couple of pretty bad crashes those are the ones that make you think like twice, and you come back and you're a little fearful in the comeback, and, it takes you a while to get comfortable riding close to people again, but it's part of it. It's just part of it. And, it's part of the reason, honestly, that I did retire at the end of the day, because on the women's side, a lot of women peak a little later than they do on the men's side. So it's not uncommon for women to race. Like I raced into my early 40s.
Right.
So that's not uncommon. But what happens when you're 40 and you crash is different than what happens when you're 30 and you crash.
You bet.
And so towards the end of my career, I kind of got tired of being hurt and being fearful. And, I just knew it was time to retire. So, the crashing thing is part of the deal, but it can be not great.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? I mean, on either one of your guys' sports, right? Hitting the wall, doing a tumbleweed, right? Doing whatever. It's just a matter of time. And so, and I read your blog, Kristin, it was 41 and Fearless, and I thought that was pretty neat. You didn't mention the mental side a second ago, but after reading your blog, there's definitely a mental side to how you have to work through processes, right? I mean, in a little bit in your chase for the medal and things you described in there, some really cool stuff of how you process your fear and how you work towards making it through some of those things. And I'm sure that's something you both have had to do. I mean, I can't imagine rolling a car 8 times at 200 miles an hour and thinking, okay, I'm just going to get right back on that horse and ride it in the morning. I think there would be some time lapse that I would have to work through to get back in the saddle, right? So how have you guys, to the listeners, if you could tell the listeners, how did you guys process that mentally and work through some of that stuff? I mean, that seems hard to do. Okay.
Well, for me, I think probably the single most important attribute that I could bring as a professional athlete is the ability to allow myself to be vulnerable. And so and Bobby can attest to this too. When you're a professional athlete, you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror, and you have to be able to assess what went well today, what didn't go well, How do I feel about it? What are those emotions called? To put labels on them, to start thinking about how to get better. Because you, as a professional athlete, you're constantly seeking, for both of us, constantly seeking more speed, more power, more aerodynamics. There's never an end. There's never a finish line to your performance. There might be a trophy along the way, but you're never done improving. And so for me, the ability to be vulnerable and have people around me that I could trust in that state of vulnerability was critical. So like our friend Chad that introduced us is one of those people for me. He was, and still to this day is, family to me. He is someone that I know that I can tell exactly what I'm thinking, feeling, fearing, chasing, dreaming about, and he is able to process and listen and not I guess not take on my challenges or my words or my visions, but to support me finding my own way.
Right.
And so, for me, that the key has always been vulnerability, that I have to be able to go there to find my best performance. And so, with injuries or fears or doubts or anything, just to be able to say that I have them and that I feel them and put labels on those emotions, that was a huge step for me.
Yeah, I think that, as you're telling me this, I'm thinking about even as a hunter and an outdoorsman, that you do the same thing, right? I mean, there's days you could miss an elk 3 times. Yeah. You're going to have to figure that out. You're going to have to label it, process it, and put it and improve, whatever. But you're always chasing to be better than you were yesterday in the woods, right? And everything that you're trying to accomplish. And I think that being vulnerable to someone, like even trying to find a good hunting partner, is like trying to find your soulmate, right? Austin Manilik out of Alaska told me that, and it rings through to me all the time, because finding someone who you can genuinely be vulnerable with, and someone who you can be yourself, and yet they're not leading you, but they're right beside you, helping you move forward, helping you process, helping you make it right, and helping you improve and chase the dreams that you have. And like you say, there might be a reward along the way, there might not, but more or less the journey is the most important part. And in your blog, I enjoyed your journey through the entries that you did, because it just showed a real life person making real life commitment and the passion that was in your heart and soul for what you're trying to achieve and where you were going. It was amazing. And I think that having that help was paramount for the end of your career, right?
Yeah, it was. It totally was. That blog played a big role in the way that I ended my career. My last big race, legitimate world-class race, I won a world championship, and people ask me all the time if I still race, and like Bobby says, I am definitely retired. Those days are definitely over for me. But when I put my helmet on and we go out on a group ride of 2 or a group ride of 200, I'm still racing.
Yeah. You still don't. You set a parameter when you leave, right? I mean, if there's 4 of you, you want to be number 1. If there's 200, you want to be in the top 20, right? I mean, there's still a spirit of competitiveness no matter what.
Right. It's hard for both of us to shut that off, which I think you're totally right that it does transfer over into everything else we do. And I know that we are big time into the outdoors. I've been hunting with Bobby, and definitely with absolute humility, I've gone with him, but I've been successful as well. And so that just feeds onto the next and the next and the next. And that is exactly how sports, professional cycling works. It's the same mentality.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel as a fisherman and a hunter, where there's a big overlap between NASCAR and hunting, right? And do you think that that's a regional thing or a lifestyle or something else? How did that, what's your perception on that from being on both sides of the fence?
Well, it seems like there is a group of people that do like to hunt that are racers. It's swung towards cycling probably more now than. It doesn't mean that they can't go hunting, but I don't know how you make more hours in the day if you do too much. But hunting for me, it's if you're hiking in New Mexico for miles or Colorado or Alaska or wherever it might be, it could be to some people it's a lot of work. For me, it's not. It's like, okay, this is exciting, it's exhilarating, but it's also relaxing. Mm-hmm. When you're at a elite level of sporting in a sport, and you're at the elite level, that you are giving it max. You better be giving it max, 100% all the time.
Right.
So whether you're walking 10 miles a day hunting an elk, or you're having to do a lot to do a hunting or fishing trip, it's way more it's relaxing to me.
Right.
So whether I go fishing or whether we go hunting, it's a relaxing time. Even though your heart, without a heart rate monitor on, your heart is probably pumping more than it is in the race car. When you see something you're fixing to shoot, or you're catching a bigger fish than your buddy, or whatever it might be,
right.
You could have a higher heart rate at that point in time, but it's exhilarating and it's fun, and it's, to me, I guess it's relaxing. So it's a thrill in itself of relaxation that I enjoy, because when you're at such a level of, I've raced for 20 some odd years, you don't know the level you're at when you're doing it. You just know you're just doing it. So, but then when you can go hunting, you can kind of relax, and you realize you try to relax, and it's hard to do because you're at such a high level,
right,
and intensity. So, but I think that's that. Everybody finds something, whether it's farming, whether it's riding a bike, whether it's hunting, whether it's fishing, and people do all kinds of different things in NASCAR for relaxation. And, that's one of the things that I enjoy doing, was to be able to go hunting or fishing, or, some people might go, and you had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning. It's like, so, you look at it as that's no big deal. You have a different respect or aspect for, not pain tolerance, but for doing something. Well,
right.
This is still way easier than 38 weekends a year, or this racetrack or that race, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It seems to me, I'd really be curious what the percentage is, but do you think that 100% of the NASCAR fans are fishermen and hunters? Because there's that crossover, right? Where.
Yep. I don't know if it's 100, but it's got to be at least 93.9.
But now that's your guess, okay? All right.
So, no. I mean, in reality, when you look at it, I mean, I 100% have either gone hunting or fishing, probably. Maybe they don't always go hunting and fishing, but right. They've been as a kid, or as a dad, or as a grandpa. You know what I mean, with the grandson or a son. So, I think everybody's probably dropped a line in a water somewhere, shot a BB gun at something. In some type of sport like that. I mean, not many people that I know of haven't done it. Right. I just don't turn down that road the way I drive.
It may not be a lifestyle for every one of them, but you're right. They probably all at some point in time have gone with grandpa or their dad or whatever, and got an opportunity to fish or hunt, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
So are you more of a fisherman or more of a hunter?
I probably hunt more than I fish. I mean, it's not 50-50, but probably hunt more than fish. But it's like my fishing expeditions are more to different places. I had a pond in the backyard I lived at for 7-8 years, and I probably went 10 times. But yet I can safely and proudly say I've been to South America fishing, I've been to Alaska fishing, I've been to Colorado fishing, I've been kind of off the coast, been to Mexico fishing. So I'm not an avid fisherman, but I'm an avid traveler to go fishing guy.
I like the way you work. That sounds good to
I
me.
said, Jake, we go to Alaska to fish, and I'm like, sure. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, right. I know. Why wouldn't you? Now, Kristin, you were an only child growing up, and I know that you had a lot of cousins. They were all boys,
Yep.
but your dad went hunting with them, and not so much with you. But you did get a rare opportunity that a lot of people don't get to do anymore, and that's go trapping with your
Yep.
father, right?
Yeah. So I think my dad would probably say that he was born maybe 150 years late. He would have loved to have been a pioneer.
Right.
And so we grew up in the most organic, free-range lifestyle way before those words were even uttered. And so we heated our house with wood stove. We had a 5-room house, an old farmhouse built at the right before the 1900s, and we heated it with a wood stove. My dad, chopped the firewood. We had this huge garden. We canned all of our vegetables for the winter.
Wow.
Had calves that we put, we have their beef for the winter. And then my dad, my parents were extremely hard workers, and he would trap for extra money. And so me being the only child, I was the son and the daughter.
Right.
And so whatever we were doing with my mom or my dad, I would just be part of it. And so, whether it was, mowing the yard or working in the barn or running traps, whatever was happening, I was just part of it. And so, yeah, many winters I would go out and check traps with my dad. And I can remember a few times where he would tell me, okay, go stand by that tree and look the other way. Because I was just a little kid. But, the memories of spending that time with my dad are priceless to me. Just being out in the woods and checking things out. And then, of course, he hunted a lot. He hunted, well before I was born. He grew up hunting, and all my cousins being boys, he hunted with them, never thinking that I might have an interest. And he did take me shooting and things like that as a kid, but I never went hunting with him. And I fished with him quite a bit too, but no hunting. And so then fast forward to my life with Bobby, and one of the first things big things we ever did together was go bear hunting in Alaska.
Yeah, tell us some more about that.
It was incredible. I
Right.
love Alaska. We had the best time, and actually went back for a second trip, but we hunted with a guide named Bob May, who is bigger than life personality and legendary bear hunting guide. So I feel super fortunate that I got to get to know Bob and be out in the Alaska woods with him. And both trips were, for me, completely epic. But after those trips, my dad's like, I'm so sorry. I never thought of taking you. You were the girl.
Well, that was back then. That was the way it went down, right? I mean, back then the women didn't go.
Yeah, right. We didn't go. And so, of course, he loves it now that I go. And here in our house, I have my 2 deer mounted and on the wall, and I think he's so proud of that.
He ought to be. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun to be able to share those stories now with my dad. And my mom. I mean, she's been married to my dad for almost 50 years. So, she's been part of that whole transition and the lifestyle and all that too. So it's pretty cool.
So have you had the opportunity to hunt recently with your father, or is there a hunt maybe planned with your father?
Yeah, that is a really good idea. We probably should do that. If we're going to do it, we need to get it done, because he's had some back surgeries. And so we need to make sure we go on flat land.
Right.
and not too tricky terrain. But he would probably love that. He would.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
I think maybe you should come to Colorado and hunt elk.
Yeah. Well, he has done that.
Yeah.
He's traveled out west. Of course, his whole "I should have been a pioneer" mentality includes, roughing it out in the middle of nowhere in the mountains and the Rocky Mountains, hunting for elk and caribou and all that.
So what hunt do you think he has left on his bucket list that maybe you guys could accomplish?
Gosh, I don't know. What do you think?
He hadn't shot elk, has he? Or
No.
it says mountain. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think
it doesn't necessarily mean mountains though, Bobby. I mean, there's plenty of elk in some lower elevations that are pretty flat that you can get to reasonably easy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably just a hunt with me would be epic for him because, I'm still enough of a rookie that sometimes things happen that are a little comical.
Right. Well, that was a pretty good laugh. So it almost sounds to me like you may have something in mind that you might want to share. Bobby, you want to tell a story?
Well, remember that one time at band camp?
Well, I can just tell you this, and I don't know, there's probably several stories here, but the very first deer that I was supposed to shoot, I did not know that. And
let me tell this story. I think I can do this.
See, I knew it was yours, Bobby. I knew it was yours.
Yeah.
So we're going to hit the stop button right there. But just so you know, I asked Kristin to tell us about her first hunt in Alaska, and Bobby just jumped right on this one. So he had to jump in and tell this story of her first epic hunt in Alaska. So tune into part 2 and hear the story and some other awesome adventures that Bobby and Kristin went on.